What happens when a country disappears, not because of war, not because of politics, but because the oceans have swallowed it? In today's episode of TAC Explained, let's explore the climate change facing these island nations. This isn't the plot of a dystopian movie. It's the reality staring at nations like Maldives, Tuvalu, and parts of Indonesia. For them, climate change is not a debate about the future. It's a ticking clock. With every passing year, the sea rises higher and the land beneath their people shrinks a little more. The science is brutally clear. According to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, global sea levels are projected to rise between 0.28 and 1 meter by the next century, depending on how much carbon emissions we cut. Even at the lower end of the estimate, the consequences for low-lying island nations are catastrophic. For some, survival means clinging on to a narrow strip of land. For others, it may mean the complete disappearance of their homeland. Take the Maldives. From outside, it looks like a paradise. Turquoise water, overwater bungalows, and beaches that stretch endlessly. But beneath the beauty lies a terrifying truth. The Maldives is the lowest lying country in the world. Its average elevation is just 1.5 meters above the sea level, and over 80% of its islands are less than 1 meter above the sea level. If the seas rise by even half a meter, much of the Maldives could be rendered uninhabitable. By the end of the century, the country may not exist in its current form altogether. The story of Tuvalu is equally heartbreaking. Home to just 11,000 people, Tuvalu is already experiencing flooding during high tides, a phenomena known as the king tides. By 2050, half of its land could be underwater during these events. The government knows the stake. In a bold and a symbolic move, Tuvalu's leaders have begun creating a digital nation, uploading their culture, laws, and heritage online to preserve Tuvalu's identity, even if the physical land vanishes. Imagine a country that continues to exist in cyberspace because its territory has been erased by climate change. Indonesia presents a different but equally urgent case. Jakarta, its bustling city and home to more than 30 million people in the metropolitan area, is sinking faster than almost any city in the world. Over-extraction of groundwater combined with rising sea is causing parts of the city to subside by 25 centimeters per year. Scientists warn that 1/3 of Jakarta could be underwater by 2050. The Indonesian government has already announced a dramatic solution, moving the capital to a newly built city, Nusantara, on the islands of Borneo. Relocating a capital city is rare in history. Relocating one because the old capital is literally sinking is unprecedented. But the story is not about disappearing land. It's about people, culture, and justice. Millions of islanders and coastal residents face the prospect of becoming climate refugees, forced to leaving behind ancestral homes, traditions, and identities. And here's the dilemma. What happens to a nation when its physical land is gone? Do its citizens still have the same rights? Do its maritime borders and fishing zones still count under the international law? Does it still get a vote at the United States? These are questions humanity has never had to answer. And make no mistakes, the crisis will not stop at small islands. The sinking of the Maldives or Tuvalu is not an isolated tragedy. It's a warning. By 2050, rising seas could put up to 1 billion people worldwide at the risk of flooding. Major coastal cities like Mumbai, Bangkok, and New York all stand to lose. The sinking nations of Asia are simply living the future sooner than the rest of us. The global response so far, painfully inadequate. The Paris Agreement of 2050 set the goal of limiting warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial levels. For small islands, the number is not symbolic. It's the difference between survival and extinction. Yet the current policies put us on a path closer to 2.7 degrees Celsius of warming by 2100. At that level, sea levels could rise over a meter and ecosystems like coral reefs, the lifeblood of many island economies, would all but vanish. Every fraction of degree matters. At 2 degrees Celsius of warming, nearly all coral reefs are expected to die, devastating fisheries and tourism. At 3 degrees Celsius, whole nations could disappear beneath the waves. So what can be done? The survival of these nations depend on two urgent actions. First, cutting greenhouse gas drastically and immediately. This means phasing out fossil fuels, investing in renewable energy, and honoring global climate commitments not as a distant promise, but as an urgent necessity. Second, investing in adaptation strategies. For some nations, this means building seawalls, elevated housing, and flood defenses. For others, like Indonesia, it means relocating entire cities. For Maldives, it could mean creating artificial islands or negotiating resettlement partnership with other countries. For Tuvalu, it has already meant reimagining the concept of nation itself. But here's the injustice. The nations most at risk are least responsible for the crisis. The Maldives, Tuvalu and other small island states together produce less than 1% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. Yet, they face the harshest consequences. Meanwhile, the largest polluters, wealthy, industrialized economies continue to argue over timelines and targets. It is a textbook case of climate injustice. Island leaders have made their desperation clear. At the climate summit in 2021, Tuvalu's Prime Minister gave a speech while standing knee-deep in seawater, a haunting image of what his country is facing. The Maldives has repeatedly called for the world to recognize that this is not just about environmental protection. It is about the right of a people to exist. Small islands, big threats. These nations are on the front line of a global crisis they did little to cause. The story should shake us all because it is not about them, it is about all of us. If the world cannot rally to save Maldives, Tuvalu or Jakarta, how will we protect the billions who live along the coastlines everywhere? The clock is ticking, the waters are rising, and unless urgent action is taken, history may soon record something unprecedented, the disappearance not of ships but of entire nations. That is all from me today. This is Nidhi for the Asian Chronicle.